Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Gaming in the Wild, a video games podcast about games from the artistic, creative side of the tracks, from indie to AAA. My name's John, I'm your host, and this episode, it's a special episode. I've got a guest on, a return guest. I'm going to be speaking with Ciaran Daly, a good friend of mine, my gaming mentor, as I like to call him, because it was him that put a controller in my hand a few years ago and said, play Journey. You haven't played games for a while, try this one. And it kind of set me on the path of playing more games. So I like to catch up with Ciaran. I like to see what Ciaran's playing. And we had a lot of games to talk about. It's been a year since he was on the show. And we talked about Metroid Dread. We talked about Back 4 Blood, which he is playing. We talked a little bit about Halo Infinite, which I've been playing. We talk about the wonderful indie game Golf Club Wasteland, which is a golf game with bad golf, but it's still a good game. So if you want to hear how that works, we talk about that game too. But most of all, in this episode, we talked about Half Life Alyx. And this is a game that I've been very curious about as a fan of VR. And Ciaran has played it. He has a PC that will run it, and he has a Vive headset. And so Ciaran's been through Half Life Alyx and had a great time with it and has a lot of great stuff to say about it. It was really interesting to hear this one because I don't know many people that have played it. I've heard a lot about it on podcasts, I've heard a lot about it in the media, but it was really nice to just talk to someone who's played Alyx and find out exactly what it is that makes that game so special. It's a long episode, we went long, we talked a lot, so before I continue into that conversation, I will just mention that this show is patron supported. So whether it's your first time listening today, or if you're a long time listener who listens every week, you can support the show for $1, a pound, €1 a month at patreon.com/gaminginthewild for an invite to our Discord community, for occasional extra episodes, sale recommendations and reviews, and little bits and pieces like that. So if you're interested in becoming a patron of the show. And with that said, let's get straight into it. Here's my chat with Ciaran Daly. So, my guest this week is none other than my games mentor, Ciaran Daly. Hello, Ciaran.
Hello, John.
How are you?
I'm good. I've been grouting tiles. I've painted an archway. I'm doing a lot of DIY. It's like real world Minecraft. Right.
It's been a while since you were on the show. I think it was like Christmas last year. 2020. We did a Games of the Year 2020 episode.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
God.
It's been a while. And from chatting to you, I know that your game life has kind of had a bit of an upgrade since then, because you started a new job, right, to do with games to some degree. What are you up to?
So what I've been doing is I have a job as a tech reporter. I work for the digital version of a national paper in the UK. Not all gaming. There's a lot of weird random stuff in there, UFOs, sex robots, cryogenics, AI, but part of it is gaming coverage, and as a result, I get the odd freebie. So I've recently gained a couple more platforms in my library of gaming.
Right, because you were mostly Switch and PlayStation last time we talked, and from what I hear, it's pretty much all changed, right? So what's your new setup?
Yeah, that's true. What is my setup currently? So, I've moved house since the last time we did a podcast. I have moved house 5 times, so gaming has been very on and off. But finally, I'm settled in my own place, and what I've managed to set up is in my lounge, I've got my PS4, I've got my Switch, old TV, that's fine. And then in the back room, there's all sorts of things. I've managed to get a Xbox Series X. I've got a Razer gaming laptop. and I use that to power HTC Vive Pro 2, which is HTC's new VR headset thing. So yeah, it's been, I mean, I just had my Xbox sent away for repairs. It's just come back today, and I've been delving into the Game Pass, which you told me was going to be really good, and it was, and I was wrong.
So you're an Xbot.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Xbot Club.
Oh, yes.
I think I have to give a shout out to show listener and patron Hopple, who got me into the Xbox lifestyle. I hadn't owned an Xbox since the original Xbox, and I got a second-hand one just to play Halo because I had never played it and I was interested in it, and picked one up second-hand. And I didn't own an Xbox since then. So the new Xbox, I'm playing on a Series S, and Game Pass has become my main thing, my main platform. Like, I'm buying so many less. I'm buying hardly anything on the PlayStation 5 now and spending most of my time on the Series S, which runs amazingly well. I had my doubts about it because it's the little baby version, obviously, but honestly, it runs every big game perfectly in like 4K or close to on my monitor, like upscaled from 1440 or whatever. It looks brilliant and it never hitches, and I love it. How has the Series X been treating you?
I mean, it was good till it wasn't. It broke mysteriously. In mysterious circumstances, it would not turn on anymore. And I had to sort of wrangle I rang up Microsoft. I was like, my Xbox Series X will not turn on. And they're like, okay, tell us your number. I was like, okay. And they turned around, they said, oh, your warranty ended a week ago. And I was like, oh, that's convenient, isn't it, Microsoft, that my warranty ended a week ago? And they're like, you have to pay for this. I didn't in the end. I used my powers of the press, but it's back now. It's working. It's good. I've been liking playing. Having just this infinite Netflix of games is a bit of a blessing and a curse, because I found it quite hard to, I guess, commit to any games, because it's just, if the second you get bored, you can just go, oh, well, you know what, I'm just gonna try the other thing that's one of the other 100 games that are on here. So I haven't had much committed time playing, but I did get through a few titles. I got through, some, well, I don't even remember now. I got through The Artful Escape. I did a couple of others. I got Back 4 Blood. I've just been playing that with my friend Jan today. And obviously things like Forza, Halo. And I'm kind of interested in looking at these old 360 games as well, but that hasn't happened yet.
Maybe the Series S having a smaller drive. I mean, I've got 25 games on mine, and that's like full. So if I download anything new, I have to sacrifice something else. So maybe like the pressure on keeping the memory full of stuff I'm actually going to play helps me to focus a little bit. As I guess if you can just fill the endless Series X with games, I can see that being more of a problem. But I'm like, I think I'm going to power through this indie game and get it off my drive and move on,
Yeah, no, that is not an issue for me. I'm like, it's like I don't know. I'm going to the supermarket on like the sale day. I'll just buy, download things that are just completely pointless. I know I don't need them anytime soon. I'll just like Smaug the dragon on my big mountain of gold coins, just hoarding.
Right, and we didn't do a Games of the Year episode this year because partly because, like you said, you moved house 5 times, and so your gaming has been a bit spottier than usual. But I think in the spirit of all those episodes that happened, was there, like, did anything come to the top for you in the end of the best games that you played that came out last year?
I mean, that came out last year. It's hard. You know what? This is kind of going to sound bad, but I have no idea when things come out. Like, I'm just not. Maybe because of my new job I do now, but most of the stuff I play, I'm like I remember when Metroid came out because I wanted it. I got it on a press code. I mean, that was a new game that I played last year. Obviously, when I got the VR, Half Life Alyx featured heavily, but that wasn't a 2021 game.
That was a 2020, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah,
I know you
what?
played Dread and Valhalla, didn't you?
I did. Well, Valhalla I'd kind of had that for a while. I think that was like 2020 as well. And I loved that, but I don't know. it's kind of hard to say, really. I think I've had such a patchy amount of gameplay that nothing really stood out to me in the last year in the way that it did in. I think 2020 was a really strong year for games, and 2021, had a few good titles, but there was nothing that kind of. Maybe it's because like all these next gen consoles are in their first year or something, and we're going to get all these big releases this year, but there was nothing that really blew my mind that I knew was like a new game, But that's
I remember
probably my fault.
trying to strong arm you into playing Inscription, which was my game of the year, like just a PC card game, but so much more. But you're not a card game guy, are you?
I mean, I'll play a card game with cards.
But the deck builder, the deck building roguelike, the video game card game where it's almost like like something like Dungeons and Dragons or Magic the Gathering or something like that, where you have all these rules and someone has to games master the shit out of it. And the computer version of card games is like they take care of all of that under the hood, knowing the rules, serving you the correct results from your dice rolls or your card plays or whatever. So it's like the most complex, interesting end of like role-playing card games is what you get on the video game version of it. I tried a new one yesterday, Monster Train. It's on Game Pass. I almost bought it on Steam. It's been in my Steam wishlist forever, and it pinged up that it was on sale. And then someone said, no, it's on Game Pass, don't buy it. And that's a really weird one. It's like, what's that show where they, Snowpiercer. It's a bit like the Snowpiercer. So you're on a train, and it has 3 carriages, and you're the demons of hell, and hell has been frozen over by the angels, and the angels are the bad guys, and they're coming for hell. They're trying to put out the pyre of hell, and you're on the last train full of demons, and you have to defend your train, carriage by carriage, by playing cards, demons, magic, like strength and defense, and buffing your cards, breaking through all of the carriages, and defending the pyre. And you have to do that 8 times to complete a run. And I've only played 3 runs of it, but it's super cool, super addictive. There's loads to learn. Like if you apply rage to something or if you apply regen to something, you can kind of make some of your units absolutely unstoppable. But you have to get the right cards, and it's different every time you play. You get dealt a different hand. And it's so addictive. Like you can see the systems playing out on screen in a way that would be really difficult to manage if it was like a physical card game, but the video game is doing all the work. So yeah, Monster Train is one that I think I'm gonna play more of actually. But I've gotten massively into the deck builders. But Inscription is a different kettle of fish, really. I mean, I know your taste in games, and I know that you are like quite a AAA guy sometimes. Like you like the Assassin's Creeds, you like the big games, but you also like just in your general taste in culture and from the stuff you do with Radical Art Review and your general taste and outlook on things. I know that you like things that have a twist to them, that are a bit smarter and leveled up and have more to offer as well. And Inscription is that. Like it's such a Ciaran thing to me. It pulls the rug out from under your feet and it moves the goalposts and just leaves you kind of reeling at what just happened. I wish I could get you to play that. I've bought you a game for Christmas several times to try and get you to play them. I remember buying you Hollow Knight.
Yeah, Hollow Knight worked.
Yep, and Sayonara Wild Hearts just because I wanted to cheer you up at that particular time. And I was like, that's the perfect game to cheer someone up. But maybe I'm going to have to literally buy you Inscription. It's one of those games where you want to buy it for someone and press it into their hand and say, trust me on this. It's like that game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll play it. I'll play your card game.
Yeah, I hope you do. If you do, let's talk about it on the show, because when I talked about it, it's such, like I said, it's got so many levels and so many surprises and twists, such a big way, in a way that games don't do. They set up their loop and then they grow that loop. They don't just pull it out from under your feet and start doing something else completely. And Inscription does that several times. But when I talked about it, I was focused on being spoiler-free, so I didn't really talk about it. I've never really talked about Inscription and gotten into it on the podcast, and I would love to. So if you do get around to playing Inscription, we could do a spoiler cast and actually comb through what the hell is going on in that game. I think people would like that.
All right, deal.
But we've got like a long list of games to talk about in the episode, starting off with just a roundup of things that I know that we've both played a little bit of, or games that we're playing right now. I mean, So you've been playing Back for Blood with your friend Jan this weekend. I've never touched it.
I literally just got off it, like, 10 minutes before this.
Right, and you know that I'm not a multiplayer guy. I like a solo player campaign, story campaign game that I just play by myself. Never really been into the online multiplayer, but I would like to hear about Back 4 Blood because I know that you've been enjoying it. So this was a 2021 game on PC, PlayStation, Xbox by Turtle Rock Studios. It's a sequel, right, or a follow-up to what was the first one?
I would say it is a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead.
To Left 4 Dead. And I know very little about this apart from zombies and multiplayer. So please fill me in. Like, what is Back 4 Blood and why is everyone talking about it?
Okay, Back 4 Blood is, I guess to explain, you got to go a little bit back to Left 4 Dead, made by the same people, Turtle Rock Studios. They started work on Left 4 Dead, and the idea of it was that it would be a co-op zombie shooter. So you have the reason the number 4 is always in the title is because there's 4 of you, and so that's one element of it. And what Left 4 Dead also had that shares with Back 4 Blood is it has something called the Director, which is at the top when Left 4 Dead first came out, is quite a sophisticated AI that basically means that every single playthrough of the game is going to be different from the last one. So even if you play the same maps, it has this AI director that manages the pacing, the challenge. If you've just had a really difficult stretch, things are going to get a little bit easier. If you're coasting through and things are too easy, the director is going to throw just hell at you. It will change the location of things like power-ups, where villains are, where hordes are, where zombies are going to get you. And they're kind of, Left 4 Dead's kind of, the way you'd play through is like the campaigns would be quite self-enclosed. So you'd have 4 levels or 5 levels you'd have to get through, and it would be like almost like a sort of B-movie sort of setting. It'd be like get through the hospital, get through the zombie shopping mall or whatever. And so that basically, Turtle Rock were bought by Valve and cashed in on it. Left 4 Dead was super popular, and they made Left 4 Dead 2, which I think Turtle Rock the devs weren't that happy with, and they managed, a couple of years after Left 4 Dead 2 to basically get out of their contract with Valve and become an independent studio again. And they became an independent studio because they wanted to make Back 4 Blood. So
right, but tell me what this game, like, it's first person, right?
Yeah, so it's a first-person shooter. It keeps some of those things from Left 4 Dead. So it has, the 4-person co-op. It has the director. It has all that. But the difference with this one is it has, it's funny you were just talking about, it has a card-building aspect. So as you play through the campaigns, you unlock new cards, and then each time you play, you will be randomly allocated cards that are like either in your deck or from out of your deck, and you get to choose between them. So like this match I just played, it was like you had 3 cards, and one of them was like, okay, there's no power anywhere in this level apart from on alarmed doors, so there's no lights. And if you set off an alarm on a door, then it's going to track the horde. Or it'll be something like, if all of you get through without falling over, then you'll get a big buff. Or I think there was another card that was, all the zombies have body armor on, so you can't like kill them by shooting them in the body. And it'll be things like that, and so you'll get to build your own perks and kind of build your character. I like playing as this girl. What's her name again? Amy, I think her name is. I'm probably wrong. She has like a baseball cap and a baseball bat, and she has extra stamina so she can run faster. She's better at like hitting people. There's other characters that have like, they have more of like a medic buff, and really you replay to get your deck better and better. And yeah, I think it's kind of the game that Turtle Rock wanted to make as Left 4 Dead 2, but they didn't really get the chance because they were put into Valve and there's more influences going in.
But when you play this one, do you get... Because, I mean, I guess some groups of friends play the same games, and so they can get 4 mates and do, like, have a good time on this and talk to each other on, live. But you were playing it with Jan, so do you get match made with randoms to fill your group out?
Yeah, you do. And I would say the game is, like... And I think this is probably true of every multiplayer game, to be honest. Like, it's just infinitely better when it's with friends and when it's with people you can coordinate with. And I mean, the game is just harder. Like, the game is just not easy if you're playing with people who don't have microphones. You might match with good people, but the whole game's about how do you communicate and like coordinate as a team of 4, like stick together and everything. And playing with Jan, it was, I've played with a few people who had microphones, and it was a much better experience than without. And then playing with like a friend, and we game together a lot. Me and Jan are multiplayer, so we have kind of a way of being able to communicate with each other. And I really got to actually see the potential of the game. Like I've never got past the first section on my own, but I managed to get to the second act with him today. And, it's just more fun, you're kind of joking. And I guess the beauty of the game, because of the replayability is like, and it's the same with, I don't know, like something like Battlefield or anything as well. You get to kind of carve out your own little story and your own little narrative with your friend. And, I think maybe the similar thing happened when we played Red Dead Redemption, and we had like this kind of vague mission to go somewhere, and then you.
Oh yeah, when you and me had a Red Dead Online session.
Yeah, and so things
that was crazy. I remember that I was the accidentally badly behaved member of the gang, because I think my horse died for some reason, and I tried to steal one from a passerby when we were on our way to do a normal, like, fun time cowboy hometown mission or whatever. And then there was a witness to this horse theft who ran away. And then suddenly the sheriff was after us, and I shot a sheriff, and you were like, John, stop it. And I was like, I don't know, I'm just trying to get a horse. And suddenly we were being chased up a waterfall by like 20 sheriffs, and my horse died again. Yeah, it was absolute chaos, basically. So, I mean, that's one of the only multiplayer experiences of this type that I've actually had. I just don't do that. There's something about like playing through a story that I really like. And gaming as a solo activity, it's something that I really like. But that was fun. I did get a taste of the kind of chaos and spontaneity. And like you're saying, like carving out your own narrative. There was never going to be a climbing up a waterfall to escape the law because of a horse theft narrative. Like, it's not in the game. We just made that happen. So I do understand what you mean.
I mean, yeah, with Back 4 Blood, the beauty of it is like, it is a campaign. Like, you are playing Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4, and, obviously you're carving out your own thing in that, but there is also a sense of like, you really need teamwork and you really need progression. And I think because it's only 4 of you, it has like, there's an intimacy to the multiplayer that I think when you play in like one of these big multiplayer games with like 120 people in or whatever, or it's like an MMO, then it's just a bit messier and it's a bit more chaotic. But this is really like, okay, like it's basically couch co-op, but we're not sat on a couch. And yeah, I remember the first time I played Left 4 Dead was with, I was a teenager then. And I think we played the demo, me and like 3 friends from school. And I remember there's like an enemy in it that's called the Tank, and it has like a bazillion health, and it's just terrifying and big. And I remember like being a teenager, the first time we played, and like it was all normal zombies, and this big monster comes along. And I remember all of us like running away and getting into an air vent, and we were all backing up and like screaming as this thing was like crawling towards us. We're like, ah! And just as it got to us, we like managed to kill it, and it like fell dead like a foot in front of you. And that's like a memory from a game that maybe 15 years ago that's kind of an example of what this kind of genre can do. So yeah, I think I'm going to be excited to play more with Jan and get further into it and see what the game has to offer, because it's been a bit slow up until this point. So yeah.
Right. And I mean, yeah, these big games that take over Twitter, they have such a big presence in just the kind of public discourse about gaming. And like, that this show and that my taste tends to be indie games. It's the Sables of this world, and it's the Chicories of this world, and the Inscriptions of this world that excite me a little bit. And I'm not sure why. I've always been like attracted to the indie side of stuff, music generally, and, just my taste. So that's mirrored in games, and that is what I like. But because I'm on Twitter so much and a part of the discourse, that these things come along, and I can't help my curiosity. Like, I have to play them just to see what people are talking about, even if I know it's going to be a little bit basic compared to what I'm used to and where my taste lies. And so this weekend I've been playing Halo Infinite, because I have the Xbox. It's on Game Pass. I don't have to spend £60 for it. So I downloaded it. I was like, the hell with it. Everyone's chatting about this. I was listening to the video game, the computer game podcast, which is four guys, four friends who just, I love listening to end of year podcasts where people hash it out live on air and they do horse trading and it's emotional and they're like championing the games they love and then their game gets cut away and it's all, I absolutely love these things. They're great to listen to. I love lists and organizing stuff, obviously, because of all the Games of the Year episodes. But they were talking about Halo Infinite, and they're passionately championing the game. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do it. Haven't played Halo since Halo 1. So I fired that up like yesterday and played a little, and then more today. And yeah, this one's obviously like a Microsoft Studios game, came out at the tail end of last year. It's only on Xbox and PC, has the campaign, has the multiplayer, which seems to be where all the heat lies these days. But because I'm like a campaign single-player guy, I started the campaign. And I have to say, there are good and bad parts of this one. Have you played any Halo Infinite?
Yeah, so I started off on the multiplayer when it was in beta, and I mean, I never expected to like it. I always thought, because, you know, the classic Halo multiplayer is always like, I think it's 4v4 and it's quite like small scale and it's quite arcadey. And I was always a Battlefield guy, you know, 64 people at least and being very tactical and strategic. And it's not just like running around corners and like blapping people with your laser gun. But, you know, okay, maybe it's because I was really good at it. I don't know, but I liked it, and I'd never played a Halo game before, and I got into the multiplayer, and then I think the campaign came out, and I mean, I think I got through Warship Grabraken?
The intro, basically.
Yeah, I got through the intro, and then I've just got outside, and then my Xbox broke, so I'm going to be getting back into it.
Right.
But I think it's fun. It's fun. It's cheap. You know, there's nothing wrong with cheap thrills. You know, I think like there's something kind of like for what it is. It does it very well, and I'd say it's a lot more like it's more fun than a lot of these kind of corridor first-person shooters. I mean, my opinion of it will probably change once I get into the open world bit, and I'm quite excited to see that. But yeah, I think obviously it's very silly.
Yeah,
like. Just like, I don't know anything about the story. I know there's this dude named Master Chief who's just like... He's like Master Chef. There's this guy, Master Chef, and this is like my idiot's understanding of Halo. There's Master Chef, and he was like an orphan who like got forced to go to like space gym from like an early age.
Oh, wow. You know the lore of Master Chef.
Yeah. And now he's just tonks. He's just really big and like... He can just, you know, he's like Earth's mightiest warrior or something, and he's got like his best friend is like a blue AI lady, and like Earth is like they're fighting aliens, and that's kind of my understanding of Halo. And coming
I mean, I don't even think
that
you need to know that much. Honestly, I've been skipping through the story parts. It's basically Space Warrior kills aliens because they're bad, and that's all you really need to know, I think, to play Halo.
Yeah,
but I got through that first boxed in section that you played through as well. It is corridory, and I guess it's supposed to be like a big set piece intro, you know. But I found that it fell flat as that. You know, a lot of games have that. Like, for example, I guess Metroid Prime being the most direct comparison, where you are Samus and you're running through the space station. As always in Metroid, something happens, something triggers, and you have to escape. You have to get the hell out of there. And you run for the hills, and the clock's ticking down. And there are things falling in your way and explosions everywhere, and you just get out in time. And that's the Metroid formula, even since Super Metroid. And in Prime, it's in 3D. And it's really cool. But I felt like in the Halo one, it fell a little flat. So I was like, I don't think I like this game. It's just shooting and explosions and giant space orcs that grunt at you in an unintelligible story, and I'm not sure if I'm going to click with Halo. But then today I picked it up for the second session, and that moment when the door opens and you see the landscape in front of you, and I was like, okay, this is different now. And so today I've been picking off, like, you know, the map opened up and you get all your little pins everywhere. There are hostages, there are people that need your help, there are enemy outposts, there are things that you can get to power up the chef. And so I've been driving around doing that and having loads of fun. And I have to say that as an open world gaming fan, like, Breath of the Wild being my favorite ever, and a big fan of Horizon Zero Dawn and Red Dead, I love an open world with lots to do. And Halo Infinite has blossomed into that. And it's still silly, and it's still like an American military simulator where everyone's like, I'm with you, Chief, let's go get him, and all this crap, which is not the vibe that I love. But as someone that loves a good open world, I've been rampaging through that world today and having lots of fun. So I can see the appeal of it now. I think Halo as an open world game does quite well, even if the core gameplay of a first-person shooter isn't my thing. Because it's an open world, it's very modular, like from camp to camp to camp to camp. There's some different things to do in every one. Like maybe it's a silo where you have to blow up certain strategic points. Maybe you have to open a door to let your reinforcements in. Like all of these little differently designed missions create varied gameplay across an interesting map. And that's working for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite dynamic, really. Like just even these little combat encounters, like even though this guy's meant to be, like Jim Space Baby, like he still seems to like, he's still escaped by the skin of your teeth sometimes. It's quite exciting, I think they've definitely. I think that first section is almost, it's basically a tutorial level, isn't it? It's like introducing you to like the basic. Here's how to fight and find things, and now we're gonna like let you loose. Yeah. So. I'm excited to see.
It succeeded as a tutorial, but I think it failed as a dramatic set-piece intro, in my opinion. But, I think the best thing that happened today was when you first get vehicles and all your grunt pals jump in the car with you, and you go on a little road trip through the Halo, killing aliens. The best thing that happened was tearing down the side of a mountain to get to the next point, and an enemy ship came overhead and dropped out 2 vehicles that then started having a car battling moment with me. And my guys were like shooting at them and I was ramming them. And that was very spontaneous feeling. I like that. I like that driving through the world has got spontaneous moments that happen rather than just being Ubisoft pinging between pins. So that was fun. I like that they built in a little bit of spontaneity even into the campaign. But speaking of Ubisoft map markers, a game that we have both played. You have finished. You've been all the way. You've been through this mammoth game, and I've just played. I'm still in Norway, just running around in the snow, having a great Viking time. But Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which you are right. Actually, I thought it was 2021, but it came out right before Christmas in 2020.
I remember because my mum got me it for Christmas.
Right, it's taken me this long to get to it, but after playing Odyssey from beginning to end on your recommendation, actually. I had to detox from the Assassin's Creed world because it was just so much game. But I finally got around to Valhalla, and this is a fun one. I mean, I like the Viking setting, and I think liking the setting goes a long way in an open world game. So obviously the kind of the Icelandic Old Norse that you're hearing is of interest to me as someone that lives in Iceland. It's fun. But it has all the same problems as Odyssey did, like the extremely dumb AI. When you walk past someone 2 meters away, they jump away and go as if you've just walked up and trodden on their foot. And so it's got this immersion-breaking Ubisoft AI problems where no one really seems to be responding to you correctly, which gives me a sense of disconnect with the world. Like, it's not going to be a game that I'm really immersed in. It's always going to be a video game to me. It's never going to be a story. But once you kind of lower your expectations and realize that it is just going to be a fun open world time where you're a Viking, and it's not going to be like a masterpiece in any way. I think once you've got your expectations in the right place, there's a lot of fun to be had in this one, I would say. But it's been a few months since you finished that one. So what was your takeaway from it, and how was your time with it?
I mean, it's interesting to have this conversation because you basically still haven't left, the Great Plateau of Valhalla. I mean, for when I played it, I kind of steamed through Norway. I was like, get me the fuck out of Norway. This place is cold.
I'm trying to prolong the Norway section. So I like the snow. I like the snow and the mountains and the long shadows. I'm lingering because I like it.
I mean, I found the story kind of it hooked me in early on in a way that Odyssey didn't really, and I just wanted to get through that, and I just really just stuck to this. I kind of knew, and I was probably right in the end, that it's such a big game that I was like, okay, I just need to like make some headway, like get to England and then start things. And I think the things that make this game more interesting than the previous installments tend to they come when you get to England, basically, and just the treatment they've done to the country, as someone who lives there, is really cool.
What is, sorry?
The way the setting, once you get to England, for example, just the way they've done it is just really nice. I felt like, I mean, it's hard for me to explain because you haven't got there yet, but basically, without any spoilers, I mean, you are trying to settle England, basically. It's the settlement era. So, I mean, one thing that really stands out to me straight away when you get there is when we think of like medieval England, and particularly the Viking era, we just think everyone was living in longhouses, you know, having Viking kind of stuff going on. And obviously people were living in longhouses, but Britain at that time people were living in like the ruins of Rome. Like there was still loads of like Roman ruins. Like you go to like Colchester in Essex, like half the town's Roman still. And to them, the Romans had vanished like centuries ago. And they're just like, oh yeah, we just live in these like ancient ruins that like civilization left, but it's the modern day for us. So you get there and you're trying to settle. You have one thing that's really cool about it is you're trying to build your settlement. So the whole game is kind of revolving around Eivor going to different regions of Britain, following little quest lines that I think were done really well, and they have quite a lot of choice involved in them. Like you feel like you have a bit more of influence and sway in like what happens in each region, and using that to basically build up and furnish and customize your like little homestead thing. That's quite fun actually, because you really feel like, I feel like Assassin's Creed games in the past feel like you're not making much of a dent in the world, but just the way that works is quite nice. And the setting is really great, obviously, but having that element of like a bit more of a feeling like you're having like choices matter is great. And you know, there's certain elements like, I mean, how is it like certain paths and certain progressions, I'm trying not to be spoilery here, but like
I mean, I get the basics. It's well set up for an Ubisoft game, because if you're doing a conquest, obviously there's a strategic taking over of different areas, and if you're taking over different areas, you're going to have to deal with like a local leader, which lends itself to lots of allegiances and things like that. So I can see how it's well set up for an Ubisoft game, and I can see how that's going to work with some obviously there's room for story twists and backstabbing and all that stuff. So I can see how it's going to play out.
I think my biggest issue with it, on the one hand, yeah, I like the story. The setting's amazing, like just breathtaking. Like there's so much like diversity in the geography. I feel like the world's a lot more full. Like they've added loads of like mysteries and like just funny little weird medieval things that happened in them. Like, you know, back then people were just sitting on tree stumps and like taking mushrooms and like, I don't know, losing things in the woods. And there's just these nice, like inconsequential little side quests in the world. But the game is just, on the other hand, is just way too long. It's just insanely long. And like, you really have to just, I think how long was it? For me to like finish the campaign and like not do loads of stuff, I think it was 90 hours. And that doesn't include any of the expansion packs, and that doesn't include like, you know, I'm not a completionist, as you know. I just like to go get on with it. And still there was a whole section of the game I didn't even, again, I can't get into spoiler territory too much, but there is a section of the game that in its own right, and this is optional, it's an optional part of the game, is in its own right is 30 hours long. If you choose to like just go and do that, you never like. And I got to the stage right because I was trying to get through it. I think I don't know, I was getting annoyed, and I really was just like, oh my god, I just I just want this game to be
Yeah,
done now.
I know that
so
feeling. You're giving me flashbacks to playing Odyssey. This is how I was with Odyssey. Like, the intro is great. You learn who Cassandra is. You learn about the time period. You see ships being built. You see barrels being cooped. You see arrows being fletched. And you're like, you have a lot of time to really soak in the world. But then there is a long middle part where there are just lots and lots of boxes on the map that you have to turn green. And you do the same thing again and again and again. And it seems like Ubisoft are perhaps the biggest villains when it comes to padding a game. And I wonder if their core audience, or who they understand their core audience to be, like that about it. I mean, there is like a discourse currently, because I think it was Dying Light 2 said it was going to be several hundred hours to complete the game, and they stated it as a point of pride. And so I wonder if there is still this idea of the young gamer who can only spend £60 once or twice a year, who wants there to be a game that's going to last them the whole year. And it seems like things have tilted to the point where people want 10-hour experiences or 20-hour experiences that they can finish over a couple of weeks and play more and experience more with their time, rather than going indefinitely through one game. And I also wonder if the Ubisoft formula I think you can earn a player's time if you add in new mechanics and if you add in unusual twists and you change the game enough so that it evolves throughout your playtime and you don't feel like you're just treading water. But I think in the Assassin's Creed games, and especially in Odyssey, I felt like I was treading water. I felt like I was doing obligatory, repetitive quests in order to try and get my next morsel of story. A little like a pigeon tapping a food pellet dispenser, trying to get my next snack of story out of the game.
I mean, I think what is better about about Valhalla than Odyssey is it's a smaller world. Like, there's just more packed in. I felt like when I was playing Odyssey, it's really like, okay, time to cross that massive ocean to like go and do this, that, and the other. It's a bit more compact, and it feels like a lot less empty, I'd say, the England setting.
Right, Odyssey definitely felt sparse, and some of the areas felt like they designed the map before they designed what was going to fill the map, and so some of it just didn't really need to be there. Like, the ambition, their eyes were bigger than their belly when it came to game size in Odyssey, I think.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, the story's just a lot tighter, and I think if you really want to enjoy Valhalla, I think my advice is like, just like focus on the story, blaze through it. It's gonna take you ages anyway, and you're gonna encounter cool stuff sort of by osmosis as you do it. I think I wish I just sort of wasted less time, because there was still really cool stuff happening in each region, in each story, and it, and there's a lot more variety in the missions. I think like so in Odyssey, obviously you had to have like big battles, right? And they were just the same battle, like every
literally just
region.
the same battlefield. Yeah.
And in Valhalla, you have basically each region has like a castle keep, and every single one is different. Like they're not repetitive, the mechanics of how you break into the castle, like maybe there'll be a boss fight at the end of one, maybe there won't, maybe you'll have to do a stealth one. Stuff you've done along the way will help you build up more of a force, and it'll make it easier. So I'd say there's more variety, it's more compact, but it's still absolutely massive. And just, I'd say, to make the good bits less annoying, try and just focus on them, because if you get too sidetracked, then the stuff that's actually cool about it is going to start feeling annoying and like, we've got to do that now.
But the next game that we've got is actually another big game. We're pouring through some big ones here. We've had Back 4 Blood, Halo Infinite, Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The next one is Metroid Dread, Nintendo's big game of last year, which I was happy to see. I'm a Metroid fan. Super Metroid was a formative game experience for me. It's one of the few games that I completed during that era of gaming, along with a couple of Zeldas and Final Fantasy VII. I didn't get to credits on many games in my young gaming life. I would play, I would get stuck. You couldn't turn to the internet for help. If there was, they weren't friendly games. But I did manage to get through Metroid Dread, and the conclusion of it is so memorable. It's another one of those time escape things that Metroid does so well. And so I was very happy to see Metroid finally back on the roster. even if the early indications were that because it's Metroid Dread, that it was more of a stressful Metroid, more of a horror Metroid, and that turned out to be the case. But you've finished this game. I've played an hour and bounced. So it's a little bit like the Valhalla thing. And I tend to cover games on the show that I liked because I like to champion and I like to recommend. And I don't really like to dissect and critique. And I think it makes for better listening when someone is recommending. So I'll get my opinion out of the way and then let you tell me the positive sides of Dread. But to me, Metroid games are about wonder exploration, finding this revelatory, interesting, intricate world where you can explore at will, open different pathways, experience different biomes, get morsels of story that don't matter that much, but it feels fun, especially in Prime. I think Prime is the best iteration of Metroid. It really brings the wonder to the fore when you're scanning the environment and you're learning about this natural world, as well as space pirates and blobby Metroids and stuff. But Dread doesn't allow for that, really. It's a lot more pressure on you. There are brief periods where you do get to explore, but they are interspersed by Emmy encounters, and the Emmys are obviously these ferocious killer robots that look like, what would you say, like a big cat?
They look weirdly like Dog from Half Life 2.
Okay, you think dog. I was thinking like an oversized jaguar, the way they scramble up ledges and chase for you. But basically, when you come into an Emmy zone, they hunt you down. You have to run away from them. You cannot kill them unless you get a very, very special weapon. So most of the time, you're running away from them. And you're having to solve a puzzle at the same time. So you're running away from an Emmy. You're perhaps doing routes of this area that you're locked in together, and it's on your tail almost all the time. And you have to run, escape, not die, and also get your head around the fact that there is an exit that you have to unblock under time pressure. And if you fail, you die. And the Emmy kills you in one shot, and you have to do it again. And this, to me, was so intensely frustrating that I got the game rage. I got the game rage playing against the Emmys. I was like, oh, fuck this game. Honestly was. Like, I'm taking the cartridge out. I'm deleting it from my Switch. That was the kind of game rage that I got with this. I didn't find it fun. So I bounced. I bounced on Metroid Dread. Perhaps I will come back to it later, but I know that you really loved it. And so now that my negativity has been vented, please tell me about your experience of Metroid Dread.
Yes, the next installment of John Dislikes Game that I then try and silence.
Sorry about the format. It's not intentional. The next game is the opposite, so enjoy it while it lasts.
So I haven't actually finished it, firstly. I don't know how far I am in. I think I'm like 9 hours in, 10 hours in.
That's close to the end. I think it's a 12-hour game.
Yeah, it's not long. I'm not like... It's not a game I've really been... I think at first I had the exact same as you. I played it for like an hour. The Emmy alienated me. And then I just sort of bounced and didn't pick it up for a while again because I was moving house again. But then I came back to it and I'm enjoying it again. It has a lot of like... I think the Emmy, firstly, they start off as this terrifying monster thing that just, is going to destroy you. Obviously, as you power up and you get like new abilities, as with most Metroids, they start to become more of a nuisance than like a sort of scary antagonist, Like
you are allowed to kill one towards the start, aren't you? You find like a special missile and you're able to kill an enemy, so they can be killed, but it's a single-use missile. At least that was my playthrough. I'm not sure if there's a splitting route, but I was able to kill one within the first half hour of the game, which really surprised me. Because I thought it was going to be a much bigger build-up. Each area
of the game, you're trying to... You kind of conclude each area by killing the Emmy in each region. Mm-hmm. And as you get new ability... Like, I don't think this is spoilery, really. Like, at one point, you get a cloaking device that lets you, like, cloak. So you can go through Emmy zones, and if one detects you, you can just cloak. And it's only got a time-limited sensor, but you can kind of... Gives you just enough of a chance to, like, hide... and like maybe find a quiet little corner. If it bumps into you, it'll still get you. But you get like the odd little tool to kind of fight back against them.
Right, soften the blow.
Once you get at this point, they're not like, it's not like they're gonna, you're gonna die if you meet one. For me, but I think for the game, what I found more frustrating is like, I don't know. There's a lot of bosses. I like the odd boss fight.
I've heard they're pretty tough.
They are quite tough. They're not as, I think if you finish Hollow Knight, you'll be fine. Like I don't think, kind of like Hollow Knight, you know, I hated that game for like the first 10 hours and I loved it and like obsessively and like completed it to like 110%. And yeah, I think this one, I think the world's a little less compelling than some of the other Metroidvanias that have come out the last couple of years. Like it really, I feel like the successors to Metroid have done more with the genre than Metroid is now capable of.
That's interesting. I think the same, actually. I think that Hollow Knight is a new gold standard for what this genre can be. And whilst Metroid Dread does try to inject some freshness into the formula, like unfortunately for me, what they've brought in as a new element isn't something that I like. So it's actually pushed me further from the Metroid, which is the roots of the genre, and closer to other Metroidvanias. Like I really enjoyed Ori, the second one. I really enjoy a current game that I'm playing called Ender Lilies, which is a post-Hollow Knight Metroidvania. I think you might really enjoy that one, actually. Stick it on your wish list. It's like a super, super nice gothic Metroidvania. But Dread for me, I mean, there's split opinion on this. You know, whether Metroid Dread, whether Metroid is still relevant to the Metroidvania genre was a big conversation around this one. And I feel like the critics were somewhat split, but came in at around 80% on Metacritic. And I think most people said it's nice that Metroid is back. They liked how fluid the controls are. They like how smooth it is compared to previous Metroid entries. They like how it's like a polished up Metroid. It's got more of a high sheen to it. It's got the 2.5D graphics. It's been a long time since the last Metroid series entry. And so it's definitely the most sophisticated and well-made, or at least in tune with current times. It's a modern Metroid. But for me, I agree with what you said. I think that other games have taken the baton of that genre and run with it in more interesting ways.
I mean, I think and also the world is I just don't find it very compelling, like, because the whole premise of the game is like you're in this hostile alien planet that like it wants to kill you and you just need to get out, and it's quite cold, and there's not like the only character you speak to is like your robot guy AI thing who just goes like blah, 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 blah,
yeah,
you've got to go up. So I feel like with Hollow Knight, you know, there's areas of the game where you're like, okay, I want to get to there and I want to like unravel the mystery of what's going on there. But I think Metroid Dread, there's not much mystery in like a sort of world building way. It's more just like, you know, I want to get to that place so I can like unlock that door so I can go to the next area. And it doesn't have that same kind of intrigue. So I think that's probably where it falls down. But I'm having fun with it. Don't get me wrong. And I think once you get past those first few hours, it's a slick game, and it's good fun, and it's quite challenging. But yeah, it doesn't have that hook in the same way, I guess. Right,
Hollow Knight is such a special one. I mean, when I think of my favorite moments in Hollow Knight, it was not defeating the goddamn Soul Master or the Traitor Lord. It was actually hearing an opera singer ghost sing to me in an empty opera hall in a dead city, and the beauty of that was, it gave me goosebumps, like the hairs on the back of my neck went up. I was like, this is something special. And also there's just strange little stories like the banker who you give all your money to. I guess I can't spoil it, but these cute little storylines in Hollow Knight, and the explorer Quinn, I think Quinn or Quill, that you meet on your journey, who's always just sitting on a bench somewhere, and you've just come through hell to get there. And he's like, hey, I'm here. I'm really enjoying my time in the Hallow Nest. I'm really enjoying my exploration of this place. Did you know that this was once the site of a great, whatever? But like, you're getting these kind of wistful. That's it. It's the wistful quality that Hollow Knight had. It was like, for a game that's about like a dead bug kingdom or whatever, it had a lot of resonant, wistful moments that really hit me emotionally. So I don't know if that's just that Hollow Knight is very special, it's not really about the Metroidvania genre. Maybe Hollow Knight is just such a special game that other things pale by comparison.
I mean, yeah, probably when Silksong comes out, it will just be like, oh yeah, Metroid was bad compared to this.
Yeah. You know what? I watched a documentary about Team Cherry, who made Hollow Knight. And they talk...
like 3 Aussie dudes, isn't it?
Yeah, 3 Aussie dudes. The genius musician, the artist, and the programmer. So it's a very small team. Maybe it's bigger this time. But they talked about how they were drawing this map. And you know when you get into a flow when you're making something and it just gets bigger and you don't want to stop? It seems like when they were designing the Hallow Nest, they kept getting a new idea and tacking on a new area. And they were like, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a village? Wouldn't it be great if you got to the bottom? Wouldn't it be great if you got to the top? And what would that look like? And they just kept going and going and going. And that's why the Hallow Nest became just this vast wonderland of imagination, really. And I think that the fact that Silksong has been bumped for 2 successive years now without a trailer, without a word about it, I'm just hoping that they are back in that zone and that they're just making it bigger and bigger and just running wild, you know. So the next game is one that I liked and you didn't, so we get to turn the tables a little bit here. It's a game that I got a couple codes for. There's a couple of nice publicists who will sometimes give me 2 codes if I want to talk about a game with someone. And I got 1 code for Golf Club Wasteland. It's a golf game, side-on, kind of arcadey. But the twist here is that you are golfing through the remnants of Earth after humanity has left and gone to live on Mars. So no one lives on Earth anymore. It's a dead planet. And it has this very interesting thing where you're golfing through an old shopping centre and perhaps there are escalators that still work. It's kind of puzzly in the way that you have to solve each hole. But this one, again, this to me said Ciaran, because there is... My favourite thing about this game is that there is a radio station that is playing as your protagonist golfs through the wreckage of the Earth called Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Radio Nostalgia from Mars.
Hello all you Martians out there. It's your Terran fixed foot soul with a bit of that old world flavour. You're tuned to Radio Nostalgia from Mars. Breathe easy, kick back, and reminisce.
Take my hand, explain to me this project called humanity. Don't let go while on this ride. There will be no surprise. All I know is that we shouldn't be sad when we think of the road ahead. Take my hand, don't let go. I know we won't get lost on our way home. Take my hand.
In kind of speculative sci-fi. It's not just that the game is set for in the future when humanity has gone to live on Mars. It's what would that look like? What would that feel like? What would they think about Earth? Would there be nostalgia for Earth? What would the politics be like on Mars? What would the lifestyle be like on Mars? And what they've done is that they've made a podcast, basically, or a radio show that runs for the length of the game. It never repeated for me. I understand that it runs out and loops eventually, but my 3-hour playthrough, I never heard the same thing twice. And there are guest segments where someone will come on and they'll talk about how religion changed and there is no longer religion. There'll be music, like a techno, Martian techno. There'll be like a kind of, they'll talk about the old times of Earth in this wistful way. It's got that old-timey radio station feel, but it's a sci-fi radio show. And so to me, like, the golf is a little bit annoying, actually. The golf mechanics are a little bit basic. Like, I never quite got the hang of the power meter. I had to turn off the par so that I could just golf through in 40 shots rather than 20, just to get through the game. But there are rewards for doing it in less time if you can master the golf mechanic. So the golf game to me is just fine. It's like the thing that occupied me while I listened to the main event, which was the podcast. So I really enjoyed this one. I enjoyed the politics of it. I thought that you might enjoy the politics of it, this imagined politics of a Martian civilization and how that related back to nostalgia for Earth. It seemed like a Ciaran thing, speculative sci-fi. So I got a second code, sent you a code. I understand that you weren't as interested in it as I thought you might be, but how did you feel about this one?
I mean, I think, firstly, I hate golf. I think golf is just like a sport that just shouldn't exist. But I do like the kind of...
Yeah, okay. I can see that, yep.
I do like the kind of political angle of it. You know, I think golf in the real world, we think about golf, right? And it uses vast amounts of like landmass, just basically pointless land. It's not wild land. It's not cultivated land. It's just, you know, vast, you know, tracts of land where rich people basically just go and hit balls across an expanse. And I liked the element of the idea that like Earth would just become a massive golf course for like the rich.
Yeah, that's solid satire, right?
There's something inherently funny in that. And, you know, we've destroyed the planet, but at least we can play golf here now and there's no one to get in the way. But yeah, I just hate golf. So I think the golf game was kind of annoying. And the podcast, though, the radio stations, I think the closest analog to it, and this is a bit of a weird one, is Grand Theft Auto. I think it's the only other game I can think of that has like an in-game radio station. I mean, GTA has multiple, but they're used to kind of, you know, these fake radio stations are used to just furnish the world and like really build in like the sense of satire and like humor and just add that like world building element. And I think it's one of the things that, it's one of the things GTA is famous for. And I liked it in this. I did enjoy listening to the podcast. I think what made it kind of fall short for me is, well, you could basically tack the podcast onto any kind of game, and I'm just not sure why golf was the one, you know? I mean, I would have enjoyed just kind of exploring a ruined Earth, listening to the podcast or something, you know? Maybe like a sort of No Man's Sky situation on Earth with a cool podcast.
I actually agree with you there. I think a different mechanic. It didn't have to be golf. Golf is kind of key to the satire, the satirical premise of this particular story. But I agree that, I mean, the concept of tacking on a really rich world building listening experience while you're playing is so solid that the game could have been better. Like, you know, it's not that good, the golf game. I'll be real about it. It's actually just the kind of the construction that they manage by combining that. I mean, did you get far enough into it to learn who the golfer is?
Yes, I did, and I thought that was the reveal of that was a very kind of nice and poignant moment, and I think it's probably the one that sticks out in my mind. Mm-hmm. You know, without getting too spoilery, I think when it's kind of revealed and like he's listening to the radio station as they're kind of discussing it, and you know, I thought that was a really and you know, your golfer kind of lies down to sleep and just watch Earth.
Beautiful moment.
This sense of like homesickness.
Yeah. For such a bang average golfing game, like it had some really memorable moments in it. I would encourage you to play the final hour of it, because I think there's 1 hour left and there is a story conclusion that ties together why this golfer is playing through Earth and who he is and what his story is. And it ties it up very nicely. So even if I felt quite irritated at times by the golf, and I don't think this is a good golf game, I would still recommend it to people as a 3-hour experience. So you play it in an afternoon. I say, like, play half of it, have a snack, play the second half on a Sunday. This is a perfect one-day indie game. And I think that it's worth the fact that it's an average golf game to get the story in this one, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think the golf annoyed me more than the story excited me.
Yeah.
And that's one of those trade-offs that like puts you off something. But yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Golf Club Wasteland, it's on Switch. It's on everything, actually. It's come out on everything. It's by Demagog Studios. Came out last year. Wouldn't surprise me if it popped up on Game Pass. I played on Switch, and I felt that it was perfect to have a handheld screen. It looked nice on the Switch. I think the Switch is the right place to play it. But the next game that we're going to talk about, and we've been talking for an hour now, and we've just now gotten to the headline game. It's the main reason that I wanted to have you on. It's because this is a game that I would love to play, but I lack the technology. It's kind of got that exclusivity to it at the moment because not everyone can play this game. Very few people, comparatively, can play this game. You have to have a powerful PC. You have to have a VR headset. You have to be really set up to play it. And it's Half Life Alyx, the 2020 Game of the Year for many people. Those who have played it, most of those who have played it, had it very, very high or as their Game of the Year. I listen obsessively to Games of the Year podcast. I listen to 10 or 20 of them just to hear everyone's take. And everyone who played Half Life Alyx said this was their Game of the Year. And you have played this one. So tell me about Half Life Alyx.
Oh gosh, where to start, John?
Well, can I ask you questions then, just to get it kicked off?
Yes.
The things that I'm actually interested in, for a start, so you're playing it on a HTC Vive.
Yes.
What are the hand controllers that you use? Is it like a glove? Can you see your fingers move in the screen?
Oh, right. So okay, yeah. Well, I mean, what? So you're using kind of the standard HTC controllers. It's like the.
I don't know what that is.
Like with the trigger and the circle thing and the side buttons.
Okay, so you're holding like a stick. It has a trigger. It has a thumb. Several buttons for the thumb.
A thumb pad and yeah, that's kind of it.
Okay, and you can move in game, and your hands move as you move the controllers. So it's not like that cool thing I've seen where there's literally a glove and you can like count to 5 on your fingers and see them on the screen. It's like okay, I get it. So it's a standard kind of Oculus style VR hand controller.
There is a glove. There is a glove, but the glove is in the game, not in your hands, not in your real hands, but in the game. We'll get there.
Okay, so that my first question was about the controls. My second question is, how does it feel to be controlling in-game hands with these controllers and the movement? VR games to me like live or die on how good the movement is. There is this thing called locomotion. There is teleportation. Locomotion where you are moving in real time, looking left and right, taking steps forward and scrolling through a game, which gives people seasickness. And so this other method was invented, teleportation, where you point into the screen, you click where the cursor is, and you teleport to the next place. You can turn around in different increments. It solves the seasickness. But to me, it takes away what I want VR to be, which is a sense of freedom in this space, in a virtual space, is what I really want from VR. So I never play teleportation if I can help it. So tell me about the movement. How does it feel in this game?
Yeah, so before I get on to like what Half-Life Alyx is and why it's exciting, just from purely like a technical standpoint, how this works, it has both. And what's the locomotion feature, I guess you just described? You can set that, or you can have teleportation. When you have locomotion set, if you will control with your left hand moving forward, moving backward,
with
as
a
if
stick.
You were doing. No, so like the Vive controllers have like a soft pad, and it's like a kind of a touch screen pad.
Okay.
So you just glide your thumb along it, and you'll move forward, and you will like where you move your head is where the direction you will move in.
Okay, nice.
So you can move strafe, left, right, and back, but you can, if you're moving forward, you can just kind of look, and so it's quite smooth. But on the other controller, you still have teleportation. So if you get stuck or you need to move quickly, you can use that to run, and it's quite nice because you can't run. I was playing it in room scale, which is you have a perimeter, you move around in the perimeter, and
were you actually taking steps in the space?
Yes,
physical steps in the space. How does that work?
So room scale VR. And this is usually the one you need a high-end computer for. You have 2 sensors. One plugs in to your laptop, and the other you put them diagonally across from each other in a room. Mm-hmm. And then you do something called a room setup, where you get one of the controllers. You trace the outer boundary of like this space you want to be in, and it needs to be certain size. I think it's like 2 meters by 1 meter. Once that's set up, you can. It tracks you completely. So it doesn't track your legs or anything, but like, for example, you can crouch and go under objects. Mm-hmm. You can move any way you move within this space, you will track, and then you will use the controller to kind of it's not like, I mean, Half Life Alyx in this case and some of the other games, it's a continuous campaign, so you do need to move, but within wherever your character is, you will be able to move around quite freely as if it was in real life. And so when you get into gunfights, for example, this is really key for like hiding under cover, poking your head around corners. Certain hidden objects will be in boxes. So things like that. That's kind of how room scale works. And it kind of brings you on to the fact that like talking about this game, Half Life Alyx, is quite difficult because we're not just like reviewing a game. Like we're basically discussing like a new medium, right? This is like a new medium, and this is probably the first game that has tried to maximize what you can do with that medium, or make a full thing that isn't just, it's not just a play demo, it's not just like a proof of concept, it's like, we have made a 15-hour, 16-hour game that you're going to play entirely in VR. And that's firstly, that is like a landmark element of it.
Right, and so you see this as a breakthrough for VR?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do, because it's just, I think a lot of people had VR experiences where it's just a 360 video, or even like PSVR, right? You're in your chair, it's quite static. The fidelity isn't always good. And I think first, like right off the bat, even from just loading up the menu, you can tell they've done something different here. Like the graphics are absolutely incredible.
Right, that's something that was what I was going to come on to actually after the controls, was that like something that, I mean, I've played No Man's Sky in VR when I'm just using a controller. I tried it with the PlayStation Move controllers, but they're such a blunt instrument. I reverted to a DualShock controller. I had the locomotion movement on, so it was free movement. And being able to look around in No Man's Sky, being able to look up at the moons that are orbiting you and seeing ships cross over you, there's a sense of wonder to it. There's a sense of magic to it, where you're like, oh my God, I'm in No Man's Sky. I'm not just looking at it on a screen, I'm in it. But I mean, No Man's Sky has good graphics, but it's No Man's Sky. But what I was curious about was if you're moving through like the wrecked cityscape that tends to be a Half-Life environment. I'm very curious about things like, when you're taking a walk in real life and there is sunlight, there is shadows, there is wind, things around you. I'm curious about like how much closer we've gotten from the No Man's Sky kind of, oh look, there's a slightly funny looking dog alien running next to me and that planet is cool. Like how much closer have we gotten to sunbeams and to, feeling the reality of this environment?
I mean, right off the bat, and I probably at some point we have to say what Half-Life Alyx is, what it's about. But before that, I mean, like right off the bat, when the second you start the game, you load up. If you've played Half-Life before, it'll be you open in this like white expanse. There's sort of dust flying around, and text comes up on screen, and it explains who you are, subject Alex Vance, objective unknown. This is something that appears in Half-Life universe quite a lot. I'll get back into that in a little bit, but you start the game on the balcony of a building overlooking City 17, and it is just like, and I've had 4 friends come around and try it, and it's just jaw-dropping straight away. I think firstly you're looking out at this like the rooftops, there's wind, there's dust flying around, the fidelity of things, you can get up close to a railing, or you can pick up a piece of like newspaper off the ground, and you can read the words on the newspaper, just like a random prop that's like thrown in a corner. I think the first thing that's worth mentioning is that it has a physics engine. So something Half-Life 2 did was it basically brought physics engines to games. Like we didn't have physics in games in a realistic way before that, or at least not in major games. And it has a physics engine, so with your hands, you can pick up any object, any single object you see, like bottles, pens, whatever. You chuck them up into the air, they'll fall down with gravity, you can smash them. You start next to this greenhouse, and there's these pens. You can pick up the pens, take off the lid, and then draw in like markers on the glass. my friend Jan came around and played it, and he immediately, I mean, he gets very giddy about things, but he was just like, oh my God, it's the physics you know and love in real life, but it's in a game. You're next to this radio when you first start, and you can tune the tiny little dial on the radio. You can tune the dial, you can extend the antenna, and you can tune into different stations. So straight off the bat, you're already in this situation where you're throwing things off the roof. There's paper blowing around. The lighting is this kind of hazy lighting you'd get in a polluted city. It's like immediately it's just impressive. Like the fidelity is just it's on another level from any VR thing you've ever played. Like straight away you think, oh my God, they've done it. Like they have made VR happen properly.
Wow. I can't wait to try this. I hope to come and visit you in sometime in the summer if COVID dies down, and like just take this out for a spin. But I mean, I know that you are a long-standing Half-Life fanatic, I would say, like fan / fanatic. So you played the original Half-Life at the time, and you told me to play Half-Life 2, and you've been a big supporter of Valve and specifically Half-Life. So you've played through. I mean, I understand that it's like coming in on season 6 of a great show to talk about what Alyx means in terms of the plot. You know, like I'm not going to understand it, but I know that you've got a lot of thoughts about what the plot elements of this game are. So I don't know. Without giving spoilers, like tell us the story.
So I think, okay, if you've never played Half-Life, firstly, you're either like young or you've been under a rock, like gaming wise,
or just a console player. Like if you're from PlayStation 4 onwards, you haven't had a chance.
Yeah. So I think the first thing worth mentioning is like Half-Life has always been focused on on breaking new ground in terms of what technology can do in gaming. So like the first Half-Life, I think it was the first FPS or at least one of the first to pioneer this, was no cutscenes. So story is unfolding in front of you as you move organically through the game. And the first Half-Life is a landmark FPS game. I think every FPS that has ever come out owes an awful lot to it, in terms of just how combat works, how puzzles work, world building, level design, everything. And you're in Half-Life 1. You're Gordon Freeman. You're a scientist in Black Mesa Research Facility, which is a secret scientific kind of Area 51 place buried deep in the New Mexico desert. And the game is about a really bad day at the office. Basically, you show up and you're doing an experiment, and there's unforeseen consequences, as the game likes to tell you. What's the first chapter called, actually? I think it's called Hazardous Materials or something like that. And basically, Gordon accidentally opens a portal to another dimension. And
oh, shit. Oh, Gordon.
All hell breaks loose, and aliens come in to Black Mesa, and everything just goes to shit extremely quickly. But the game starts with this on-rail, like, you get there, you're right.
It's a rails shooter, right?
Yeah, well, it's a very free-form kind of shooter, but I think when the game starts, you are literally on rails. Like, you wake up, and the thing with the world building of Half-Life is it's always quite trippy and a bit weird in parts. You wake up and you're on a train. That's how it starts. You're on a monorail going into work to start your horrible day at the office. And the game is about, Gordon Freeman getting out of Black Mesa by whatever means necessary with his trusty crowbar. And he's a scientist. He's not someone who was ever meant to do this. And how he eventually travels to the world of Chen, which is the alien world that these monsters have come from. And when he's, successful in his mission, let's say, a mysterious man in a suit appears named the G-Man. And he basically says, "You're hired." And you don't know what you're hired for. He's a creepy kind of guy.
So a bit like the Foundation in Control, or the Board in Control, rather, like your mysterious employer of unknown intent.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, exactly. I think Control owes a lot to it, actually. So G-Man comes in, and Black Mesa gets nuked, and You go to the alien world. G-Man
This feels
shows up.
like spoilers to me. This feels like spoilers. This is like deep story.
This came out in 1997. But anyway, no. Anyway. This isn't spoilers for Alyx. This isn't spoilers for Half-Life 2. This is just the backdrop, right? So Half-Life 2, you wake up in City 17. I think it's 20 years later as Gordon Freeman. He's been in stasis. He's been in this like black dimension for ages, and it's like 1984, you know. And the events of Half-Life 2 unfold, and it's about escaping from City 17, destroying the Citadel, which is this big monstrous thing, kind of building a rebellion against the aliens, which are now the Combine. So the aliens that were let in the 90s,
They took over.
are now, they're like an alien, like a ruling dictatorship that's collaborating with some humans.
Okay, I can see why you like this story. This is big world events. This is good stuff.
Yeah, and it's called City 17 because the other 16 didn't work out, put it that way. But Half-Life 2, I think to talk about Half-Life Alyx, you've got to talk about Half-Life 2 because it was, again, a pioneering game. So if Half-Life worked with building a narrative into the world, what Half-Life 2 did was introduce physics engines. We didn't have physics engines, really. Like, you wouldn't pick up objects and throw them and drop them. Like, I think that podcast you sent me, what was it earlier? I
sent you the No Clip. Because No Clip are doing a documentary about Half-Life and the development of it. It's going to be 2 hours long, and they've spoken to all of the original designers and programmers and graphics people. So this is something really interesting, actually. I know of your love for Half-Life, obviously, and I actually love No Clip. I love the work they do to get the unrecorded stories of developers and how classic games came to be. So they're doing Half-Life now, and they just did a podcast that was like a run-through of their own experience of Half-Life. The main guy played it as a kid. His partners in No Clip played it just now because they're doing this documentary. So it was really interesting to hear his nostalgic take and their modern take. But yeah, I sent that over to you, obviously, because I knew you'd love it.
I mean, something interesting they said was that the Source engine, which is what Half-Life 2 was built on, was like a technical masterwork at the time. You know, you had things, lighting, physics, just everything, the way you're building textures, the way you're building objects in the game. That alone, and I think this is why, I'm going to get to why the VR element is important in Alyx, but it's for a similar reason to this, is that the Source engine, Valve made it open source, so they made, someone made Gary's mod. It let people bring in any objects from the Half-Life universe and build their own levels, build their own maps. It became the basis of Counter-Strike Source. It became the basis of Left 4 Dead, which we talked about earlier, Half-Life as well. And they basically made this engine, made it really easy to use, really easy to build your own games in. And a lot of games we've seen, like Dear Esther, started off as a Half-Life 2 mod. Insurgency, which is a new multiplayer one, did as well. I think there's a few others like the Minerva Project. Quite a lot of these like sort of famous narrative first-person games came from the Source engine and just what Valve did with it and made it like, they're like, right, we're going to use this game as a sort of battering ram for like innovation in gaming and give it to everyone and they can do what they want with it and that's it. And obviously out of that you've had Portal, you've had Team Fortress, you've had Left 4 Dead, you've had all the Half-Life games as well. And I think what they were trying to do, aside from all the story stuff, what they're trying to do with the VR in Half-Life Alyx is do the same thing. They've released their VR kits to the modding community to develop new VR things, and I think just trying to prove here's the tools, here's what we've done with it. Now you guys go off and run off and do your thing.
I really hope that works out the same way, and that we get developers that use the tools Valve have built to summon the transformation of VR and gaming and push it further. That's really cool. Yeah,
and so on the one hand, that's a massive exciting thing about Alyx, and on the other is just telling this story which has not finished. That we've been following this story since the 90s. It's still full of mysteries. It's still full of like intrigue. Obviously, they forwarded the story a bit forward with Half-Life Episode 1, Half-Life Episode 2, which were like soft sequels to Half-Life 2. They weren't Half-Life 3, but it was like, right, we're going to get you to the next stage. They get out of the city, stuff happens. And one thing they did there was you had the gravity gun in Half-Life 2. I think when you played the first section, which is very classic FPS. You're being chased, shoot people, get out. But that game opens up when you get the gravity gun, which lets you, any object in the world, you can like go like and like suck it up and it floats in front of you, and then you can shoot it out. And this becomes the base of all sorts of puzzles.
Right, like Control again, like Control's launch ability.
Yeah, it's like a telekinesis. It's almost like the portal gun is like a sort of, successor to the gravity gun. And in Half Life Alyx, they've worked that into the gravity gloves.
Oh, cool! That sounds so fun in VR.
Yeah, so Alyx is set. I think it's some years before the events of Half-Life 2, so it's between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2, and you're playing as Alyx, who is Gordon Freeman's.
Oh wow, they did it between the two games. They didn't even move the story on from what we know. They did like oh wow, that's like a bold decision. We're not going to even give them Half-Life 3. We're giving them like a little taster, a little in between, a little solo movie from the Star Wars franchise.
Well, because of, and I'm trying not to have any spoilers here, because of the sort of interdimensional nature of this universe, they do move the story along. So if you've played Half-Life 2 Episode 2 in 2008 or whenever it was, like, you're going to be satisfied at progression from what happened in that game.
Mm-hmm.
But
okay,
it's set, it's like you're going back and it's showing you City 17 before it was destroyed in Half-Life 2 and give you a real feel for this place. And yeah, you get you're Alex Vance, she's the daughter of the leader of the Resistance, Eli Vance, and in the second game, she's the companion to your character, the playable character. In this game, you're her. Gordon Freeman, the main guy in Half-Life, famously cannot talk. He's mute, but Alex can talk, and she wakes up and she's trying to basically go see her dad, who gets detained by the Combine. And you are the only guy that's kind of helping you is this scientist guy. I think his name, I can't believe I've forgotten his name. I think it's Russ or something. And he gives you the gravity gloves. So these gravity gloves, they're like, you can point at any object in the environment, pull down the trigger, and then yank it upwards, and things will fly towards you, and you have to catch them. So, for example, if you're like, obviously it has a shooting element and everything. If you say a zombie's coming towards you and you're running out of ammo, you have to look around you, try and like look for some ammo in the distance, and then like try and fling it towards yourself, catch it, and then you have to manually reload your gun as this thing's like edging towards you, groaning. Mm-hmm. And it becomes a big factor of how you do like puzzles in the game. You feel like you literally have telekinesis. You have these hands. You just go like, mm-hmm. Object.
That sounds like a new kind of gameplay, actually.
Yeah, I think what it does is also because you can't go very quickly in VR, it turns it into more of a horror game. Mm-hmm. It's a lot. I think when you tuned into me streaming it, and I was in like a subway or something, and the pace is a lot slower, and it's a lot more like granular at the level of things you do in the levels, but it still has all of that richness of the world and all the strange little story elements and all the like quirky puzzles and challenges you'd get in a Half-Life game, but moves it forward with all this VR stuff.
Yeah.
And they've taken the physics of, I think there's a really cute Easter egg in it when in Half-Life 2, they kind of show off to you that there's physics in this game early on when you go into a children's play park, and there's noughts and crosses on these wooden blocks, and you can, using your mouse and keyboard, you can like rotate the noughts and crosses, or you can spin around a merry-go-round, roundabout. And you have the same play park, or like a very similar one is in Half-Life Alyx, but now you can grab the roundabout with your hands and rotate it round, or go down the side. And there's just this little like nod of the head. And yeah, I think it's very just, it's everything you like in a Half-Life game, but they've really just tried to do something different and try to innovate with just this VR thing. A lot of the time you're having to scrabble around kind of on the ground. There's certain sections you have to literally get on your hands and knees and crawl through a tunnel in like the sewers to get through. Or you'll if you want to find ammo, you'll have to go into a room and there'll be boxes or crates on the walls. You're going to have to open the cupboard open a box, look in the box, sometimes like upend it, stick your head inside things, look inside a drawer. So just this like, I guess, how would you call it? Like there's like a granular...
Right, tactile.
Sort of, yeah, it's very tactile. It's like to open doors even, you don't press a button, you have to grab the door handle and like move your arm and like pull the door open, and you might be getting chased by something, you're like pulling it shut behind you.
Right, so it adds a real sense of physicality of being in the space in which these events are taking place, rather than the slightly abstracted version of that you have if you're sitting looking at a TV holding a gamepad. Like, you don't feel the physical awkwardness of the space, of having to open a door, of having to load a gun. You just hit buttons and that happens automatically. So it sounds like it would be a much more visceral and immediate and physical, and therefore more plugged into your basic human instincts of being in the space. You'd feel those instincts being brought into the game, rather than being abstracted from the screen the way that you do if you're playing on a controller.
Yeah, I think they play about with it as well. They don't like just introduce it and leave it there. Like, I guess a fan favorite from this game is probably the scariest section in the game. And this isn't really, I think this is spoiler free really, because it's just, it's an enemy you're going to encounter at some point. It doesn't add much to the plot, but he's in there. You go to a vodka distillery and there's this monster named Jeff. And Jeff is like not a friendly guy. Jeff is blind. He's like this blind, horrible monster with a big melty face. And this guy kind of comedically introduces you to Jeff. But if you make any noise, Jeff can hear you and come and find you. So you're going through this vodka distillery, and you know, if there's a room you go into and you're trying to get away from Jeff, and there's vodka bottles everywhere with a head crab, which is like one of the minor enemies in the game, and the head crab is jumping around knocking vodka bottles off of shelves, which is like attracting this monster to you. And you'll be walking along and a vodka bottle just falls off the shelf and you catch it in your hand before it touches the floor. And you're trying to you'll be solving a puzzle, like trying to shut a door while this monster's coming towards you, and you're like using the gravity glove, you're like pulling vodka bottles towards you and then like tossing them in another part of the room to try and like get this monster away from you. And because if you've played Valve games before, you'll know there's Easter eggs in these games, and one of them in Half-Life 2 Episode 2 was you got an achievement if you carried a gnome from like, I think you're a third of the way through the game. If you find this gnome and you carry it all the way to the end of the game and stick it on a rocket ship, you got this achievement. So when you're in the vodka distillery, you've got your Russ, the guy, I think his name's Russ, the guy who's like in your ear talking to you. He goes, Alyx is obviously, she's grown up after Civilization 4. She's like, what's vodka? Is it good? And he's like, no, it's not good. And he's like, can you get me some though? And she's like, why do you want something that's not good? And he's like, that's vodka. Like, we want it. So I was like, right, this is an achievement, right? I'm going to have to carry this bottle of vodka with me all the way through the game, and I'm going to give it to Russ, and it's going to be the gnome thing all over again. I can't wait. And on the controllers, I didn't mention this earlier, you have pockets in either wrist. So it can get a grenade or like a health kit. And you basically have these two slots where you can store things. I gave up one of my slots for this vodka bottle. And I carried the vodka bottle all the way to the end of the game and realized that there's no point can you give him this vodka bottle. So you only get the achievement for taking it to the end of the level. But I went through the entire game without one of my slots that could have stored like vital things in, because I was like, I'm going to give vodka to this guy. I went online and looked this up of other people who've done this. One guy grabbed a crate, like a wine crate from the vodka distillery, and filled it with 12 bottles of vodka and carried this crate like through to the
whole
next
game.
level.
That's nuts.
I think he said he made it like one level and then he got attacked and like the whole thing smashed. But there's all these angry people online like, screw you, Valve. We thought we were doing what you wanted us to do. We just carried vodka around for no reason. And yeah,
I think we all got to get ourselves a friend like the guy that tried to bring the crate of vodka.
So yeah, I think it's just, without saying too much about the story or without anything like that, like that is like a perfect example of how they've taken sort of these classic beloved elements of the earlier games, mixed them up with all these new things that kind of refresh it and make it challenging, and then giving you the kind of keys to do it, but without telling you to do it. And you will get story progression. You'll get that satisfaction if you've stuck with this story for as long as I have, which is like, I mean, when did it come out? 2008, the last installment. So we've waited basically 13 years, 12 years for like a new update. It's going to satisfy you. But even if you're not a Half-Life gamer and you haven't played it before, just the way the VR works, the immersion, the like how realistic everything is, it's going to kind of keep you hooked. And yeah, you're going to get a bit scared. And that is what I would say about Half Life Alyx.
Well, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to try it. I wish that I could. I wonder if they will ever port it onto other stuff. You know, I mean, Half-Life 2 obviously came onto consoles along with the Orange Box, and PSVR 2 has been announced as like a pretty impressive technical VR headset with new controllers. I wonder if Valve would ever go there again, or if it's going to be a PC-only game for good.
I don't know. I mean, I think from what I've read, like, I mean, the way Valve works is quite interesting. They basically, I mean, they sell themselves as having a flat management structure, which is not quite true, but basically different projects go on inside it, and you can just choose, if you're a dev there, you can just choose to join a project, and a lot of what they get done depends on just who's interested in doing what. I think there was a lot of interest in VR to make Alyx, and apparently that interest in Valve has kind of dropped off a little bit. There's less people working on VR now, and they've said kind of that Half-Life 3 would not be VR only, but that there may be another Alyx game that is in VR. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of it hinges upon what happens with the technology. I mean, I personally believe we're within 5 years of just headsets which don't require a computer to plug into. You know, maybe it'll be streaming, maybe it'll be something like that. I think once it becomes very affordable and like portable in that way, then you might get like a Half-Life Alyx remastered or something in like 10 years. But I can't see them ever moving it off VR. I think VR is just so integral to this game.
I hope they take it to PSVR 2. Because I might end up with that. I mean, I don't own a computer, and I have no intention of getting one that can run like high-end PC VR. But I will potentially go into the next generation of console VR. I wonder if having made a game that is being hailed in the way that you've talked about it today as a breakthrough for the medium, and that was like a lot of people's game of the year in 2020, but most players couldn't play it. That's a problem for them too. And so the idea of trying to get Half-Life Alyx to as many people as possible seems like something that should be appealing, if not just from a business perspective, you know?
I think they're more interested in getting people onto the platform. You know, that is the end goal there. Like, how many people can we get to... The same way that when Half-Life 2 came out, there was this big wave of like, oh shit, people have to buy like proper graphics cards now. And they almost forced people to get onto PCs and become PC gamers if you wanted to play Half-Life 2 and play Counter-Strike. And obviously now, like, we have Steam, which, I mean, Steam is made by Valve, and it's, I mean, every indie game ever's on it, and most games, it's like the hub of PC gaming. Steam didn't pre-exist Half-Life 2. They made Half-Life 2, they stuck it on Steam, and then they made everyone get Steam and get computers that could download Steam games and play them. And I think their approach is probably going to be pretty similar. They want people to... I mean, originally they made the Valve Index before they realized no one had like $2,000 spare. But I think they want people to sign up and they want to get interest. And the way you do that is by building something people really, really, really want to play. With like Half-Life Alyx. So yeah, I guess we'll see. Yeah, they're not really. They don't tend to be crowd pleasers, Valve. Like they could have put all of their games on. I mean, the fact they put the Orange Box out on PlayStation and Xbox 360 was quite weird and unusual at the time. And they haven't done that since. You know, they want people on to just be on their thing. Yeah. So maybe that'll change when the Steam Deck comes out in the next couple of months.
Right. Are you getting one of those? Are you getting some Steam Deck swag from work?
Oh, they're sold out till next year.
Yeah, I wondered if you get one through your job.
Oh, no. Well, Valve, if you want to write to Valve press office, you have to literally email, I think it's what's his name, Doug Lombardi or something. You have to like email the guy, like the guy who's like
the main guy,
one of the guys in charge. You just got to assume he's going to read your email one day. So yeah, okay. I don't know.
Well,
they're
good luck
playing
with
their
that.
own game.
Good luck with that. Yeah, and I mean, from my perspective, I hope that Alyx becomes more available, or that at some point I magically end up with enough, with a PC that can run it. Or maybe I will just give it a try at your place. How long is that game?
How old is the game?
How long?
You're looking at like 16 to 18 hours, maybe.
Okay. Respectable.
I mean, what some people are doing, and it's definitely something you can do in London, is people just rent the equipment. So they will rent a gaming laptop and the Vive for like, 2 weeks or something, and then just blaze through it and hand it back.
It's a good system.
I mean, that's always an option. But yeah, you need space in your room. That's another thing. You need, like, it's not even just you need a console. It's like you need a bit of dead space where you have no obstacles and nothing you're going to hit into, which is not really something most people have.
Truly. That sounds like a good system. If I lived in London, I would be tempted to do that. But as for like other games, like we're in 2022 now. There are new games being released. Everything we talked about now is 2020 and 2021. Are there any games that are coming up that you are interested to play?
I mean, right off the bat, Elden Ring is out in a couple of weeks, and I'm here for it, I think. I've never really played a Dark Souls game. I haven't played anything from Software, really. I had a go at Bloodborne, and I just didn't like it. I don't think I really got it. But something about this is just speaking to me. I think I'm ready for Elden Ring.
Maybe it's those Hollow Knight muscle memories that you now have.
Well, yeah, I think Hollow Knight has opened just a sort of masochistic streak in my gaming. Like, I was telling you yesterday that I'm replaying The Last of Us 2 on like the hardest, on Survivor difficulty, which is like the hardest difficulty.
Insanity.
And it is insanity, and like it's just. I mean, I don't even know. I think it's fun. I think
I mean, that game was barely fun the first time around on a normal difficulty. It's a grueling game from a story perspective. The gameplay is fine. You get through it. But it's just a grueling emotional experience generally. So if you want to add a layer on top of that and give yourself the masochistic difficulty too, then fair enough. I wouldn't, but fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think it changes the way you play, and the problem with it is like once you start playing games on high difficulties, or you just play difficult games, like it becomes harder to get satisfied by easy games. If it's like, say it's like what was that one? Phoenix Immortals Rising. Is that what it's called?
Immortals Phoenix Rising. Yeah. You tried that one.
Yeah, I did try it. And it has a similar thing to this. It has like Souls kind of style combat, but it's like just simpler, and I think once you start getting that rush of like, oh, I've mastered this thing, I'm gonna do it. It almost like ruins some things for you in a way. Yeah,
I've never gotten that. I understand what you're talking about. I understand that mastery of tight controls in difficulty with little room for error and the satisfaction that you can get from it. I've never gotten there myself. Like, I struggled through Hollow Knight. I struggled through a few difficult games. Hyper Light Drifter was a big challenge for me. Struggled through that one, and I didn't feel the mastery and satisfaction that you're talking about. Actually, I felt almost relieved to have gotten through it. So difficulty to me is not yet something that I seek. I actually just seek an experience that I can relax with. So I've never quite gotten to that adrenalized mode that you're talking about, but I can understand it and I can see it. I've never gotten there myself, so I think I'm going to skip Elden Ring, actually. I'm mostly looking forward to Horizon, which is coming out in a couple of weeks on the PlayStation 5. I think I'm going to pick that one up, and I'll probably skip Elden Ring.
I mean, would that I could. I don't have a PS5, and Sony will not give me one, no matter how hard I try. So, yeah, I mean, I'd love to play Horizon, but I have a feeling it's going to be in a couple years once the PlayStation 5 gets cheaper or
on a PC
slim version. Or it's out on PC, yeah, exactly. But I think, what's that one coming out in November? Starfield.
Oh yeah, the Xbox thing.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really good. Is it Bethesda is making it or something?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm probably get into that, but ultimately it's just whatever the Game Pass gods decide to give me.
Okay. Well, they give us a lot. I'm playing Monster Train. I'm playing Nobody Saves the World, which is a really fun one. I'm playing Halo Infinite. Most of my game life is on Game Pass right now. But yeah, it's really good to talk to you about this stuff. I'm really excited to hear about Half Life Alyx, honestly. I wish I could play it.
No, I mean, I kind of had, to be honest, I had to cut myself off there because I know that I could literally just talk about it for like 2 hours in a very sort of rambling, discursive way. So.
No, I think you did a good job of getting it across. I mean, you're speaking to someone who understands very little of that universe, and I enjoyed hearing about it. I enjoyed hearing about the mechanics of the VR setup and also how that game slots into the wider lore of that universe. I mean, I think maybe my time for Half-Life is going to come when remasters come. Like, I'm playing Mass Effect now for the first time on a remaster, and if Half-Life comes out remastered in a format that I can play, I will definitely play it. But, you know, mining back into play sort of a 25-year-old game doesn't feel the same. I don't have that nostalgia, and so I just think it's like a kind of a janky FPS. So I don't have that whole kind of trajectory that you've described. My experience of it is very different. So I think if I do get into Half-Life Alyx, it will be the latter-day games or it will be remasters.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, that No-Clip podcast, what they were talking about was Black Mesa Source, which is a ground-up fan remake of the original Half-Life in, like, next-gen. And yeah, I think they've done it justice in a really good way. I mean, they don't have... I'd say it's obviously the source material is a simpler time. But if you want to get into that, into this just truly enigmatic story that's just very mysterious, then that might be a good starting point, to be honest. And yeah.
So I mean, what's that? Is that like a Steam thing that you can play? The
Black Mesa Source. I mean, it's on Steam.
Yeah,
it's on Steam. I think it's like under £20 or something. And yeah, if you just want to open, I mean, I'd say the original Half-Life's a little bit more schlocky. You know, it's coming from that era where like you still had these. It was like the first wave of like sci-fi shooters and aliens and everything. Kind of X-Files era.
Right.
Whereas I think Half-Life 2 is a little bit more political. It's like a little bit more mysterious. There's a bit more world building going on. But I think if you want to dip your toes in it, I mean, equally, if you've never played Half-Life, just start on Half-Life 2. I'd never played the original when I played Half-Life 2 when I was like 11. Wake up and smell the coffee, Mr. Freeman. Like, that's it. You wake up, you're in City 17. Go. So, yeah, it's there's a reason people are stuck deep in this, you know. I mean, if you'd ever played Portal, if you imagine Portal was a saga of the same length and less was given to you and you just picked up clues over a 20-year relationship with a series, then or even shorter than that, then yeah, I mean, you know, I guess the way of storytelling would be, you know, in Portal you go into like a weird room and people will have graffitied something on the wall or something like that.
Yep, the Mole Man.
Yeah, the Mole Man. It's a similar thing to that. It's scattered across this saga. So, yeah, check it out, basically.
Okay, I hope to get the chance to. Great to talk to you about games, Ciaran. Maybe if you play Inscription, let's talk again. If you don't play Inscription, let's regroup when we've both played a bunch of cool stuff and talk about it.
Yeah, we did play It Takes Two.
Yeah, we're going to play It Takes Two. We have to do it. All right, We'll do that. It Takes Two, Inscription, or Goatees 2022. We'll talk again. Thanks for your time. Good to talk to you. So I hope you enjoyed that chat with Ciaran. I certainly did. Really good to hear about Half-Life Alyx. Really fun to talk about Dread and Valhalla and Halo and Back 4 Blood and Golf Club Wasteland, which is a game that I recommend. Ciaran wasn't so keen on it, but I don't know. I think there's something to that game. I do recommend it. Ciaran is also the editor of the Radical Art Review. This is a fantastic online magazine that is sometimes published as a physical magazine. You can find it at radicalartreview.org. It's a really interesting publication. I sometimes put up games articles there. It's a very fun thing to check out, so you can find Ciaran there. He's also on Twitter at FaceCuddle, but he never uses that account. But you can at him. Let's all at Ciaran at FaceCuddle and try and get him to use his Twitter more often. As always, I'd be very keen to hear what you guys think of the games we talked about today. You can find me on Twitter at Gaming in the Wild. I'm also on Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, basically everywhere, but mostly Twitter. So it's at Gaming in the Wild if you'd like to tell me what you thought of these games, if you'd like to recommend a game to me, anything like that. Always happy to hear from people that are listening. You can also join the Discord if you'd like to become a patron and talk to myself and all of the other fun people that hang out there every day. We're currently sharing our Wordle scores. We've been having a conversation about VR. We've been talking about all the new games that are coming to Game Pass and the Steam sale. I learn a lot from being in this Discord with all of those people. You're welcome to come and join us. It's patreon.com/gaminginthewild if you're interested in that. I'll be back next week with a new episode. Not sure what it will be yet. Playing a bit of Witchwood on the Switch. That's really interesting. So it could be that one. I'm also playing a little bit of Monster Train on Game Pass, among other things. So we'll just see what sticks. But I'll be back next week with a new episode. Thank you very much for listening. Take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye for now.